Hello Steve, today we're on the site of what was the old mill prison, built before 1745. I'm going to read the plaque to you now. It says on this site was the old MILLBAY jail, where over 1,500 American sailors were held in captivity during the War for American Independence, 1777 to 1783. We're just going to have a look inside now, where the prison actually stood. We are now in the grounds of the old mill prison. It wasn't called MILLBAY then, it was the mill prison, the mill jail. In the 1700s, 1760s, there were 7,000 French prisoners held here. They were captured during fighting of the 7 Years' War. Many people call that now, many historians are calling it the First World War because it involved America, Europe, Russia, Scandinavia, India. It was fought all over the oceans of the world between a lot of nations. At the end of it, Britain came out on top, one of the ones who came out on top. We gained a lot of new territory, Caribbean islands, etc. But at the time, this was the ground for the prisoners. The buildings were in a poor state. There was barracks built here for soldiers to guard the prisoners.
This could be the remains of part of it.
It could be the back wall of the barracks, but it's more likely, I think, when the prison went into disuse and it became an army barracks. So I think this is more likely the back wall of that, or part of it. Because these walls extend all the way around. There's more walls around the back here, so we don't know the dates of that.
Perhaps you can explain exactly why the prisoners were here.
It was an open piece of ground. There was barracks built for them to house 3,000 men, but there was 7,000 crammed in here. So many, in fact, that some of them were transferred to a storage building down on the Barbican near the China House that is still there today. So down that area there were prisoners sent there. Others were put on old hulks in the Hamos, massive warships that were converted to prison ships, where the amenities and the facilities were so bad that many died, hundreds died.
So where did these prisoners come from?
They were captured in America, they were captured on the continent, and brought over here, because the war in America, the Americans, this is before the War of Independence, America fought with us against the French, and we captured Canada, as you know. We took Canada off the French. You've heard of Wolf of Quebec. So, and from Europe, because we were fighting in Europe. We were fighting all over. Sailors as well. There was a lot of action at sea where French sailors were captured. They were all brought here. Not all of them, they were spread out.
So there was a huge mix of people here?
Mostly French, but a lot of them died. There was a hospital nearby that cared for them and doctors, but in those days, disease, I mean, these prisons were not the best places. During the American War of Independence, there were ships held off New York where American prisoners died by the thousands because of bad treatment, malnutrition, dysentery, poor food. So this happened here as well, although it wasn't intentional. And there was a lot of prison is a society like it is today, where you have groups that try and take over. Even though they're prisoners, they kill their own men. They kill their own people. Sorry, it's a wasp.
So sometimes, though, prisoners were held in hulks on the river here,
yes, because there was not enough room here. So there was 3 or 4 big warships that were old warships. They were waiting to be sold off. They were converted into prison ships. And there were hundreds of men stored in the holds down there, damp, dirty, rat-infested, fleas.
So this was an upgrade?
I wouldn't say it was an upgrade. I think it was more open here. You could move around here. But in a prison ship, you can't. You're stuck in the hold.
So we can look at it like this, that this prison took prisoners from many different fields of conflict.
Yes, because after the 7 Years' War, a few years later, the Americans declared independence from Britain, and we had the War of Independence. So American prisoners were brought here. Not so many, because they were kept in ships, as I said, off New York. Otherwise, they had to transport them all the way across the Atlantic back to Britain. And there, at one stage, there was a mix, because the French fought with the Americans. They sided with the Americans halfway through the War of Independence. So we had another collection of French and American prisoners here at one time.
How is it, Phil, that we don't hear much about the 7 Years' War? It's like forgotten.
it's not forgotten as such. It's just a great conflict. It was one of those conflicts. 7 years is a long time. Thousands and thousands of men fighting. Cost a lot of money for all nations. Britain got a lot out of it. They got Canada. We took Canada off the French. Some say George Washington started that war by accidentally or not assassinating a French diplomat.
So this prison is a slight bit of what's left of how the world was made.
Yeah, there was buildings here, a lot of wooden buildings, but they deteriorated. The barracks of stone were made for the army, the soldiers who guarded the prisoners, because like I said, there were so many prisoners here. There was in 1799 an escape. 150 men got out through a tunnel, but all but 16 were captured. I don't know what happened to the 16. It'd be interesting to find out what happened to those 16.
I wonder where the tunnel.
Yeah.
Nobody remains of it still there?
No, it's been dug over, it's been rebuilt. Wouldn't it be great to find out how they got out? Yeah.
So where we're standing, Phil, is really an important part of world history.
It's Plymouth history, but at the time, because we had prisoners here from the Napoleonic Wars later, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of French prisoners were held here from the Napoleonic Wars, which went on for years. So there were a lot of prisoners kept in Plymouth. Plymouth was a prison town. Officers were treated better. They were paroled. They were sent out. They could live outside of prison. They had the money. They had the rank. They could go and stay with families. And you often hear about French prisoners, officers, who marry local girls during this period. After they were released, paid then their parole, they stayed in Britain and married.
So they found their time in Plymouth a little bit easier.
A lot easier. Money talks. When you're an officer, you've got that choice to make. You don't have to be here. So the prison here was probably sergeants and downwards were in charge.
So this is a wide spectrum of